Please. One pose. Second pose. Three pose.
So let us repeat 3 times. Namo Pensha Shakyamuni Pho. Please repeat after me.
Namo Pensha Shakyamuni Pho.
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 So we are discussing in this short course the 6th chapter of the Samdhinirmocana Sutra Tieshan meeting, and we know that it is a base for the Maitreya tradition of the analyzing the mind on the base of the alaya consciousness, the 8th consciousness. We also know that even the Tathagata Dharma tradition, Rulai Zhang tradition, which is the base for Tantra and for Zen, is also based on the teachings of the Maitreya. So in the Maitreya tradition, we have the analysis of mind from the point of view of the moving mind, which is the alaya, and from the Buddha nature, which is the essence of the mind. And the essence of the mind is emptiness. Now, the Maitreya tradition explains, like Lankavatara Sutra, like Jiuqin I Cheng, which is also attributed to Maitreya, explain that because we beings are so attached to the idea of the self, especially in India, where the tradition, spiritual tradition, is based on the idea of finding the self. Buddha has in a way continued this tradition of finding the self, but based on the principle that the self is nowhere to be found, so non-self. Now, according to Maitreya tradition, the Buddha has taught the Buddha nature also, because we beings are so attached to the idea of the self. So he taught the Rulai Zhang, the Tathagata Garbha, to assuage or to calm those, especially in the Brahmanical tradition and the Indian intellectuals, as you know, they are from the Brahmanical background traditionally. So to appease those who would otherwise criticize Buddhism and collect uselessly bad karma, because we Buddhists believe that Buddha teaching is the truth, no matter whether there is Buddha to teach it or there is no Buddha to teach it. What the Buddha has taught for us Buddhists is simply the fact. And that is the dependent origination, and that is the fact that everything we experience is only that which is related to something else. And that which is not related to something else, that is the essence of the mind itself. And this essence of the mind itself is the Buddha nature. And it is the synonym of emptiness. It is a synonym of bhutakoti, of the extreme. It is a synonym of the nature of the Dharma. It is a synonym of the Buddha nature. It is a synonym of the Dharma body. It has many, many synonyms. The most important synonym is dharmata. It is the fact how the things are. So in order, we study Buddhism, especially from the perspective of the Bodhisattva path, to find how the things are. And by finding how the things are in the world, we will not be confused about the ultimate reality, which is beyond the world. And this ultimate reality is not only for the Buddhists, is also, in fact, for the Hindus and even for the Western mystics, for the Sufis, for the Christian mystics, for the Jewish mystics. It is something ungraspable, unspeakable. And that is, from the Buddhist point of view, we can find out this ungraspable, unspeakable, unthinkable by understanding that which is thinkable, and that which is thinkable is everything that is moving. As soon as we start to think, there is, of course, a movement. We only think in impermanence, and that what we think about is also subjected to the same impermanence. This is the nature of the world, and this is the nature of the reality that we see through our mind. This reality, however, has a base, which is no real base because you cannot grasp it, and that is the mind. So finally, we also study the alaya consciousness in order to come to the last time we have explained, in order to come to that which is beyond all this and which is a base for all this. And this base is, of course, ungraspable, unthinkable. In order to understand the reality, we have also explained that is very important for our purpose. We have to understand the three realities. That's why the first question was about how we study shamatha and vipassana, which is yoga. Buddhist yoga is shamatha and vipassana, in the sense of the great vehicle, the vehicle of the bodhisattvas, which leads to the perfect supreme enlightenment. And we do so, actually, it is not explained in the text, by understanding the three realities. First, understanding that the reality we can coin by names, by sentences, by concepts, by syllables, by generalization, by particularization, that reality is not established, that we have learned. Or in another way, it is illusionary established. It is Maya. Why? Because it has no characteristics as such. This is the Yogacara approach to understanding the mind. We want to catch the mind, we actually catch the concepts we have about the mind, but that is not the real mind. As we know, the Zen tradition, the Bodhidharma has, so to say, transferred this wisdom samadhi, the transcendental wisdom samadhi in China to his disciple Hui Ke, who could not find the mind. Not finding the mind is the way. But you cannot say to anyone, you cannot find the mind. You have to find it by yourself. So this tradition of Maitreya emphasizes the direct realization. anyone can tell me that there is no mind to find, and still I will not be enlightened, and no one of us will ever be enlightened if somebody tells there is no mind. But in a way, as far as modern science is concerned, it is kind of a fact, because the mind is, as we can observe it, is only the energy. And this energy is either agitated or is non-agitated. When the energy is non-agitated, it is still energy. And according to Abhidharma, in order that this mind moves, we need energy. Otherwise, this mind will not move. And the mind which is moving is a process of cognition. And everything that we recognize by the process of cognition. But in this process of cognition, we are, so to say, linked by our memory. This is very important. We pay attention. The process of cognition starts with paying attention to something. When we pay attention to something, we already are involved in our memory. According to Abhidharma, when we see the house, when we see the car, when we see the person, it is actually only color. When we touch something, it is only hardness, softness, smoothness, roughness, the cohesion, fluidity, the heat, the coolness, the movement, and the pushing sensation. But you don't find anything that stands. What stands is actually the name or concept we put on the reality, but we are not able to grasp that the same object is seen by different beings in a different way. This is an argument, main argument for the mind only. We see according to our karmic consciousness, and karmic consciousness, according to karmic consciousness, we pay attention to the objects, and because we pay attention to similar object, we have a similar karma. But the fish, they see the same object in a different way. They see the same river in a different way. The god sees the same river in a different way. Humans also again in a different way. The birds again in the different way. So finally, it is the same water, but we see it in a different way according to the names, concepts we have established in our mind, our memory of what the thing is. So the reality is, in Buddhism, the dependent origination, but we have explained our dependent origination is based on our concepts, on our names. And these names, they have no characteristic of their own. This is the approach of Yogacara. And because we see reality through these concepts, through these names, therefore, what we see as dependent origination is a dream, is an illusion, is a Maya. So this is the Yogacara or Zen or Mahayana emphasis. We have to see by direct cognition, which is in Sanskrit called pratyaksha, pratyaksha. In Chinese, they translate xian quan, by immediate revelation of the object without naming it, without grasping it in any way, without relating it to it in any way, without investigating in any way, just reflecting it in the mirror of the mind or in the space of the mind. The mind functions as everything in, because mind is like the space. It can contain everything. And everything that we experience, we can only grasp because it is surrounded by the space. Everything has space. That's why it can be grasped. This is true of a bigger object like a table. This is true also of the minutest object like our cells. Every cell of a living organism is surrounded by space. That's why it can expand and shrink, and that is life. In order that it expands and shrinks, it needs energy. And our thinking is also this kind of process which happens in the material background, which cannot separate it strictly from the thinking process. This is very important to understand. Then the Yogacara way to understand the reality is to separate the names and concepts, as we have said, the 5 dharmas we will find in our 6th chapter also, 5 dharmas. That is the name, the sentence, the syllables, the generalization and the particularization. We beings, living beings, no matter whether we are humans or gods or animals or denizens of hell or hungry ghosts, we all communicate through these. And try to grasp reality through the skillful means of the Dharma. That is why we had in the 3rd question, this is 3rd question was how to search for shamatha and how to be good in vipassana. And this question is answered simply that we impose on this reality, we impose the Dharma. Then we have enumerated the 12 sections of the Tripitaka, starting with Sutra and so on, until the Vaipulya, the Kwan, all these different sections of the Tripitaka into which the Tripitaka can be divided. This is our Dharma, and it is only names. But without these names, we cannot function, we cannot contemplate the Dharma. We need names to contemplate something. So we are, so to say, in a turning around our own tail. This is a Zen koan also. We are kind of turning around our own tail to find what is beyond the tail. Because in order to study Buddhism, we study the triple the basket, and the triple basket is only illusionary established because no words can establish the reality of emptiness, the reality of nirvana, the reality of suchness. But it does not mean that these words are not important. Actually, strangely enough, no tradition has so emphasized the learning as this very Yogacara tradition. That is a tradition of Nalanda, that is a tradition of Buddhist logic, of the Buddhist logic is based on this tradition, Dignaga. It's based on the logic of Yogacara. So especially in the northern tradition, in order to understand Buddhism, we have to study logic. We have to understand the logic. We have to understand why the emptiness is the only possible ultimate reality. No other ultimate reality is possible, because anything you establish can be refuted. Because what you establish in relation to something else, and not one something else, but many, many things put together. Then what is put together is not something that stands. It can only be something which is on the move. And we beings are on the move. That's all what we are. But we desperately try to grasp, to, so to say, to stop. To grasp is to stop. To name is to stop. But strangely enough, in Chinese, we have to stop in order to investigate. That's why in Chinese they translate shamatha as zhi, which means to stop. First we have to stop, then we can investigate. If we don't stop, we will only investigate our past memory of the object. And it comes together with the memory of liking, disliking, of imposing what is convenient, what is not convenient, what is beautiful, what is not beautiful, what we like, what we don't like. And that is our dependent origination. So our dependent origination, which is paratantra yitachi, means erosion in relation based on ta, which means the other, not on itself. Itself is nothing but the emptiness itself, as the suchness itself. And this suchness you can only realize when you have separated your concept from the experience of the things. So this is very important for understanding our purpose. And this is also very important for understanding the third question. The third question is concerned with how to be good. Basically does not explain how to stop, but explains how to be good in Vipassana. When we read later, we don't come to it today, it's much later in the text. No matter whether shamatha, no matter whether Vipassana, whatever, when we practice yoga, we pass through 3 stages. Same in shamatha, same in Vipassana. First, there is an image. Now, according to this tradition, we have explained last time, what we hold to is not the reality, but the image of the reality in our mind. This is very significant. That's why we have explained second question, the objects of shamatha and Vipassana, 4 objects. As long as we are not enlightened, all we can relate to in meditation are images. And we need either a non-differentiated image to stop the mind, or a differentiated image to investigate the mind images. when the mind does not move, we can understand that there is nothing except the mind. If the mind moves, we will not understand that. If the mind is not appeased, that means it does not move, we will not understand that the objects that are moving are the images which move. And we will not. So that is why Vaishya, because we have to investigate these images to understand the mind as it is. Mind is the great magician creating images. Now, according to Maitreya, he has taught the theory of Alaya Vijnana, of the base consciousness, in order to break our attachment to images, which the mind itself produces. That is the aim of Yogacara. When we break our attachment to images, we break our attachment to things, because things that we perceive are the images of reality, our images of reality based on our concepts of reality. They are not the reality itself. The reality itself is, according to Yogacara, according to Mahayana, is non-dual reality, which is ungraspable, unthinkable, unspeakable. And that reality is to be realized in order to be in nirvana. Nirvana is a state which does not stand. It cannot stand, but yet, because it cannot stand, it stands. It is the self-nature of all the phenomena. Without this self-nature, the phenomena cannot arise. They arise by causes and conditions, and arising by causes and conditions is not self-arising. But we believe that there is a self which arises because of our old habits of clinging to the images of the real self in things and real self in beings. But this real self in things and real self in beings are the images which the mind produces. So meditation has 3 steps. Later in the text is explained. First, there is image. Then the mind discerns this image. Discerns the feeling one has with that image, the perception of that image. So that it can relate to it. If there is no feeling of that image, sensation of that image, and perception of that image, we will not relate to it. Then comes the whole process of cognition, of investigating in detail. And when we investigate in detail, we will see that there is nothing to hold. So we have explained, according to the third question, the vipassana is that first you investigate the object, then you resolute about the object. You take the resolution, it is this, it is not that. Then, having resoluted about the object and discerned it clearly, then you abandon that object and pay attention to another object. That is vipassana. But in the sense of Yogacara, what means discern the object clearly? It's a mental image which comes from the mind. So we have explained the vipassana has the 4 stages. If to be good in vipassana means to be good in 4 stages in investigating the images which the mind creates. We have also explained, as soon as the image arises in the mind, there will be the aspect of the karmic mind, which is based on the memory of previous experiences of the images. Then, as soon as the karmic mind arises, which is connected with our memory, this is a table, this is the shoes, where my shoes should be, and so on. Then, what will happen next? Then there is this aspect of the one who sees and the aspect what is revealed, and they come together. We have explained like a snail who has 2 sensors. As soon as he touches something, these 2 sensors will come out. Similarly, as soon as the karmic consciousness arises, then arises the aspect of the seeing, the tianfen, and the aspect of what is revealed by seeing, the xianfen, the boxiangfen. So we have, in fact, one consciousness turns to be 3 kinds of consciousnesses. The yeshe, the karmic consciousness, the dvanshe, that which turns from the karmic consciousness, the idea of the one who sees, and that is also kind of consciousness. And then you have the revealing consciousness, khyati vijnana, the xianshe. So you have, in fact, 3, as Lankavatara Sutra, which Bodhidharma taught in China, you have, in fact, 3 kinds of consciousness and 3 aspects, which are called fan in Chinese. You have the zi chen fan, you have the tian fan, and you have the xiang fan, the image. So because we hold to these images, we do not see that these aspects or these kinds of consciousness, they come from the mind itself. Which mind? The mind which can store the previous experiences, which can hold to these seeds of previous experiences. They are also kind of the aspects of and the consciousness which reveals that what the content of these seeds. So again, these 3 aspects, they become our reality. And this reality evolves from the mind which wants to grasp. But what it actually grasps is the dependent origination as interpreted by our concepts, by our names, by our syllables. All beings, they have some kind of communication. It does not need to be very complicated names, but they communicate. They in that way, they relate to the objects. We also communicate with ourselves. We communicate with ourselves by the concepts we apply to the things. That is for humans, that is for gods, that is for the animals. So we have explained the Vipassana, according to this tradition, has 4 steps. All this is to let you know, don't hold to these images of the things. Investigate them as images. So first, there is vichinoti. Vichinoti means actually the best translation of vichinoti we have explained. To understand vichinoti, we have explained this 4, second question, the 4 objects of reality. The first is Yo Fen Pie Yin Xiang, the image with differentiation. Wu Fen Pie Yin Xiang, image without differentiation. Then Shi Pian Ji, when we become enlightened, we experience Jin Suo Yo, we experience as far as reality can go. We understand reality cannot go beyond the 5 aggregates, beyond the 12 bases, beyond the 18 elements. That is all. That is why Jin Suoyo, Yavat Bhavikata, you cannot go beyond that. But we beings, we always have tendency to hold to something which is beyond that, which is beyond that which is on the move, because the 5 aggregates are on the move. The eyes and the forms are on the move. And the consciousness is also on the move, which is created by eye and color. So everything is on the move. But in this movement, you don't find, as Mahatma Gandhi has said, you don't find a millimeter of peace, even at the deepest depths of the ocean. There is no, in this movement, there is no peace. But in this movement, there is a peace. When you understand this movement, you cannot jump over it, because you cannot jump over yourself. And yourself is 5 aggregates. If there is no self, there is no 5 aggregates. Because there is self, there are 5 aggregates. But you cannot jump over the 5 aggregates, so you also cannot jump over the self. So the only way is to understand. That's why the text has explained we have to have wisdom from hearing, we have to have wisdom from contemplating, we have to have wisdom from meditation in order to learn Buddhist yoga, shamatha and vipassana. If you don't have, we have talked last time what are in the text the aspects of correct hearing the Dharma, what are the aspects of correct contemplating of on the Dharma. We have to go to solitude. We have to isolate the senses from the 5 objects to be able to go into oneself and to contemplate on these concepts. And then we experience them in the state of samadhi. So this Vichinoti investigates, so to say, in Vipassana, in all Buddhist traditions, the same. First we have to know the specific characteristics of the reality. That is a base for Vipassana. We have to understand that what we touch is the earth. In Northern tradition, also water. In Southern tradition, no water, but it doesn't really make sense. Then we touch the fire, the temperature. We touch the movement or pushing sensation. This is the immediate impression we have with the body of the object. On that, we impose the idea, this is female, this is male, this is pleasant, this is unpleasant, and so on. And we investigate according to this idea. So we investigate actually images. We don't investigate the true own characteristics. We investigate, we like it, we don't like it, but we don't investigate that this is just sensation, and sensation is always just reception of the object, either as pleasant, as unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And this is the own characteristic of the sensation. Hardness is the own characteristic of the objects we touch. What we touch, what we see, then are the images of the mind we create on these basic perceptions. This is Abhidharma. We don't get involved now in the Abhidharma, no matter whether Theravada or the Sarvastivada. The original teachings of the Buddha based on the 4 truths and investigation on impermanence is investigation of these specific qualities of the objects. When we have investigated them, then pravichinoti, then the investigation of the common characteristics of the object. When we have investigated the specific characteristics, then we know that whatever we experience in terms of the specific characteristic will be impermanent. What is impermanent cannot bring the lasting happiness. Non-lasting happiness is called dukkha in Buddhism. Whatever is dukkha, not lasting happiness, cannot be the self. This is same in even in other traditions. And what is not the self does not belong to us. So it is empty of self-existent nature. So when we understand this, so this common characteristic is pravichinoti. It means the yatha bhavikata, things as they really are. No matter whether Buddha is here or Buddha is not here, it is a suchness that whatever we can grasp is impermanent in the world. What we grasp can only be impermanent. And what is impermanent cannot be the true self. So this is pravichinoti. When we have this common, this specific and common characteristics, then we can put the wisdom into it. We can, so to say, discern them and apply mind to them. That is vitarka. Vitarka, according to Abhidharmakosha, means will and discernment. Will and discernment is vitarka. When we have more subtle mind, then there will be vichara. Vichara means the subtle differentiation and subtle will. According to the Theravada Abhidharma, the vitarka for a developed mind, for a yogi, is like a force pulling the mind to the object and literally beating at the object. When you are very experienced in shamatha and vipassana, you will experience it in this way. When I have been trained in Burma, there was a meditator who practiced vipassana for 20 years. 20 years or more, he practiced vipassana, and he was very, very advanced in vipassana. And he wanted to learn shamatha, because most of the teachers now only emphasize vipassana, do not emphasize shamatha. So he wanted to learn shamatha. And because he was very good in vipassana, he could learn shamatha. It is not so difficult. In our level of shamatha, of course, not like Buddha shamatha, but enough to use it for vipassana. So when you get into the first dhyana, you feel like you are in heaven. It is some experience you can not speak, reproduce. It is just wonderful. You are so filled with bliss and but for me, who has not done much vipassana, was like him entering the heaven. But for that person who have done vipassana, immediately he could distinguish it as impermanence and detach and suffering. We who are not well versed in vipassana, when we experience the dhyana, we think, oh, this is a heaven. But it is suffering. And one who has done vipassana for a long, long time, he can discern it immediately, because there will be this force which directs his mind to the object. So he does not allow freedom. That's why in this same Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, on which is based on this Samdhinirmocana Sutra, which we are analyzing now, in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it is said that the Buddha, he does not need any investigation of the object, discern vitarka. He does not need any will to conduct his mind to the object. He does not need any particular attention. He just reflects the objects as they are. That's all. He does not need to do anything. He is just staying in the real state, how the things are. To stay in the real state, how the things are, is to stay in the selflessness. In the selflessness, not only of the person, but also in the selflessness of everything that a person experiences. That is a state of Buddha. So he has the ability to guide other beings, because he just reflects the way they relate to the objects, and tells them, uses skillful means to tell them what is suitable for them to understand that they are creating ignorance, and ignorance is suffering. So we are studying the Mahayana tradition, the difference between the Mahayana tradition and the Theravada tradition, or the so-called Hinayana. I don't like this word. Buddha has never taught any Hinayana or Mahayana. But anyway, it is, the religion is a development. And of course, the Buddha uses skillful means according to the understanding of those who want to learn. And he can only do it because he reflects the way how they relate to the objects. And how did he understand it? By understanding how he himself relates to the object. By understanding that the best relation to the object is not to grasp anything. So this then parivitarkayati, when you have understood the Jin Soyo, everything that as far as mind can go, the 5 aggregates, when you have understood the Zhu Soyo, the suchness of all this, that means emptiness of all this, you can apply then the wisdom to your understanding. And the wisdom here is wisdom of understanding that these images, they actually come from the mind itself. So you can understand the how the sensation relates to this image, how the perception relates to the image, how the other mental factors relate to this image, how you use will to that image, how you use will factors to this image, like the virya, the effort, and so on. How you work with that image in your mind. And then the subtle image, the parivimamsayati, the parivitarkayati means you use vitarka, you use this rough differentiation with rough will to put things together. Then the subtle mind, subtle will, and subtle differentiation, you understand how the things really are. You understand that this object is the image in the mind, and you understand you should not grasp to this image. We will come later in this very text to this, how the Genru, how the suchness removes all kinds of clinging, no exception. But we have different kinds of suchness, different kinds of emptiness to remove different kinds of clinging. But ultimately, for all these kinds of clinging, there is only one skillful means, and that is suchness. Similarly, for all kinds of ignorance, there is only one thing that can remove ignorance, and that is wisdom. And wisdom is, of course, vipassana. And vipassana here is understanding what we cling to are the images, not the reality. The reality is ungraspable, unspeakable, unexpressible. But if we do not express it, if we do not explain it, if we do not teach it, nobody will understand that reality. But that reality is always there. The Buddha has not invented this reality. The Buddha has only explained. All that Buddha can do is just to use skillful means so that we ignorant beings can understand this reality. So in order to investigate these images in this way, we need to stop the mind. And today we will discuss this process of stopping the mind, or the process of appeasing the mind. This is very interesting translation in Chinese of shamatha. Appeasing the mind is stopping the mind. And the vipassana, discerning the mind, is quan, is observing the mind. So actually these translations are already based on the kind of Yogacara understanding. That no other tradition of Buddhism is so much closely related to the Yogacara as the Chinese tradition. This logic of emptiness is of course also important, but most important is why not experience it directly? That's what you are. Chinese are very practical people. They are not too much concerned with the metaphysics, but every tea, every essence has its use. And the use of emptiness are these incredible skillful means that that makes us and others to understand the fact that this emptiness is actually all the content of our experience. There is no other content. That is what gives sense to our experience. In Sanskrit, literally, shunyata means zero. Shunyata means zero. In Hindi, even nowadays, when I say my telephone number is 045, I will say shunya. Shunya char panch. Shunya means zero. And when the zero makes sense, all the mathematical calculation makes sense. When there is no zero, so the mathematical calculations will somehow not work. Similarly, our mind is the incredible living calculator, but it makes sense when it is based on this zero. But zero does not mean nothing. Zero means that something is there, but you cannot grasp it. If it was not there, then how would you understand it? How would you grasp it? But of course it is there, but it is not there in the way we understand it. Why it is not there in the way we understand? Because of our deep habit of grasping. So according to Yogacara, due to this deep habit of grasping, we are creating illusionary reality. It's all very simple. according to this habit of grasping, we are creating illusionary reality. This illusionary reality is based on alaya. And we have explained the alaya is something which sticks to the object inside and outside and to our memories and to everything that mind produces. And that what mind produces are these images of reality. So with this understanding, we can come to the next chapter. We have promised we speak about stopping the mind. This is very important. Stopping the mind takes place in 9 so-called chitta sthiti, shin-ju. Ju means to dwell. And shin is mind. So 9 we can translate as 9 abodes of the mind on the way to perfect appeasement. Perfect appeasement is called samadhi. Now you may know there is a shamatha samadhi and there is a vipassana samadhi. According to the Abhidharma, shamatha samadhi, there are 9 stages of shamatha samadhi. There is proximate samadhi, upachara samadhi. There is the first dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, fourth dhyana in the sphere of subtle forms. And there is the first, second, and third, and fourth dhyana in the sphere of the non-form, arupa. According to the Abhidharma, these are the 9 stages of samadhi. In the northern tradition, it is explained a little different. There is in between samadhi, but we leave it for now. We go to the essence. Now, in the Mahayana tradition, you have countless samadhis. But the base for the countless samadhis is still this basic samadhis. Why they are important? Because they explain the structure of the universe. Structure of the universe in Buddhism is a structure of the mind. So we have 3 spheres of the universe based on 5 senses, which is our universe also. The universe based on the subtle forms, which are the superior gods, not the sensual gods, like Greek gods or Indian gods often, or at least in mythology, not in mysticism. And then you have the highest gods which dwell in the formless spheres. All this is the samsara. That's why this understanding the dhyanas, at least theoretically, is very important. According to the Mahayana tradition, you don't need necessarily to experience it literally, but you have to understand that our universe is our mental structure. So that is why the scriptures say that the world is led by the mind, the world is controlled by the mind. Chitena niyate loko, chitena parikasate chitasa eka dhammasa, sabbe dhamma vasamanvagu. The world is led by the mind, is controlled by the mind due to one single thing, all the other things follow, and that single thing is just mind. So this is a Buddhist perspective, not just the Yogacara, but the general Buddhism. Now, to understand the mind, you have to stop the mind. But if you stop the mind by force, you are actually not stopping the mind. You cannot stop the mind by force. This is the paradox of the mind. In order to stop the mind, you need the understand the conditionings of the mind. So now we come to the 9 stages of shamatha. The first 2 stages, to speak very briefly, are the stages connected according to Yogacara Bhumishastra with forceful attention, lili joy. Lili joy. Li like Liliang force, Li like Kulita Li, to push, to you so to say, you when you start learning shamatha and you are a beginner, you push your mind to the object by force. And this is frustration. Due to this frustration, we beings are also so often frustrated because we push the mind to the object. In order that the mind can cognize the object, it has to be pushed to the object. The will has to be there. Will is what moves the mind with the help of the energy, of prana. And when we start learning something, we want to use force. The same by learning a musical instrument, same by learning singing. So when we learn music, nobody wants to hear, but still we continue because we have the determination. So very important to understand, when we learn shamatha, we want to stay with the mental image of the object. We want to stay with the mental image of the object, because if we rely on the 5 senses, our mind will always be not stabilized, will not stop. The 5 senses, they are like, according to Abhidharma, the 5 stones on the surface of the drum. When one stone jumps, the other stones also jumping, and that stone which makes more noise will take away our attention. This is a natural thing. This is called monkey mind. So the monkey mind is always paying attention outside. Now you want to learn shamatha, you have to bring your attention inside to your meditation object. The meditation object is your mental image, is your non-differentiated mental image with which you want to stay. Otherwise, your mind will not stop. And at the beginning, you do it by force. And that stage is called the stapana. Stapana means establishing. Xuanzang translate as neiju. You make that is very significant. Xuanzang is extremely intelligent bhikshu. You let the mind, place the mind on inside. That's how you learn shamatha. Neiju. Now, because you are determined, because you have the wisdom from hearing, wisdom from contemplation, that it is very important for you, to keep your attention inside, not to let whatever object comes to your five senses, not to run there. Therefore, you have continuity, samstapayati. That means tengju. Teng means a continuity, but still you are using force to have this continuity. So you will not get any satisfaction in your meditation. That is a problem. Beginners in shamatha, they have not much bliss. They have more suffering in meditation because they want to relate to the object of meditation by force. But it does not work. Now, when we understand that it does not work, what will happen? We will apply mindfulness. But first, we have to stay with the object by force in order to see very clearly, very clearly that it does not work. It brings only frustration. Then we will upastapayati, chinju. Chin means near. That means whenever you lose your object, your in-breath and out-breath, you will notice it and immediately conduct your mind back to the object, not by force, but by mindfulness. So you don't stay long time deprived of your meditation object. Meditation object is called karmasthana. That means object you put your effort, place where you put your effort into. Effort to stay with the same image. That's why Wu Fen Pie Yin Xiang. It does not mean that the other sensations come except the breath, that the other images may come in the mind, but you do not follow them, you stay with the breath. So these images will become not objects of your attention, so they will come and go. So that's how you, not by force, but by attention, you make your mind stay. Stay where? Stay in the mind. That is the mindfulness in shamatha. So other impressions will be there. You hear sound, you open eyes, you see colors, but you don't lose your meditation object. When you lose it, you will immediately notice it. And you can come back not by force, but by mindfulness. Wherever there is mindfulness, the force is, the minimum force is applied. Where there is no mindfulness, we apply much force. That's why mindfulness is very, very economic. The best investigation into the bank of wisdom is the investigation in mindfulness. Make the mind more economical, more efficient. Now, when you don't lose your object of contemplation, at least for some period of time, remember this shamatha, just like vipassana, is a process. Nothing, these 9 stages only explain the process, not explain any stages which stand. So the next stage is called upastapayati stapayati, samstapayati, upastapayati. It is called the anju. That means it stays there with the help of mindfulness. Before it, you notice when it goes away. Now it stays there with the power of mindfulness as crystallized. So you have some clear notion of the peace the mindfulness brings into the mind. But it is not yet a full peace. It's still there is tendency to thinking, because when you make the mind stay with the object with the help of mindfulness, it will be more concentrated. When the mind is concentrated and not, you don't watch over it, it will think and the object will not be clear. You can only practice shamatha and vipassana and succeed in shamatha and vipassana when your object is clear. No matter whether it is graspable object like a breath or ungraspable object like the emptiness. When you force your mind to it, it will be agitated. When you don't force your mind to it and don't make effort to keep your object clear, your mind will think, because concentration opens mind to deep mind. What in deep mind is called what the Western psychology calls subconsciousness. So all kinds of images may come from the mind, but you not follow the images, you follow your meditation object. That's why the next stage is Dhammayati. Dhammayati means Tiao Fu, I think they translate in Chinese. You subdue the gross tendency of mind to think or to be agitated. Unless you have subdued the gross tendency of mind to think or to be agitated, you will not come into this most important, very important sixth stage, which is called Shamayati. Shamayati means teaching. Teaching means appeased. Shamatha is from this appeasement, is a process of appeasement. Appeasement is stopping the mind, not by force, but by samadhi. Samadhi literally means the correct application of the mind. Correct application of the mind means absence of wobbling. In mindfulness, there is already absence of wobbling, but it will not be perfect, because your mind needs to be one-pointed, so that the absence of wobbling will be perfect. So the condition for samadhi is one-pointedness. And mindfulness does not allow yet complete one-pointedness. But it allows the mind to be very stable, not wobbling. But still, it pays attention to everything around. So it still has a tendency to being affected by the outside objects. In the state of samadhi, you are not affected by the outside objects. So you are completely inside your own mind and you are aware of it. So according to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, you are in the mental body, I Shen. To be in dhyana means to be in the mental body. It does not mean that you are completely ignoring the sounds, completely ignoring the other phenomena, but they have absolutely no influence on you. And to get into that stage, first you have to appease the mind. And you appease the mind because it has no tendency to thinking, no tendency to excitement. So you are, so to say, very, very comfortable with your mind and with your meditation. You can sit for a long time and not be too much concerned with the unpleasant sensations, which you surely will get. The older you get, the more unpleasant sensation will be there, for sure. I can assure you. And so you will not be too much bothered by all these unpleasant sensations in the body because your mind is appeased. So you can tolerate. And toleration, we have learned last time, they were 5 aspects of wisdom. Toleration is the aspect of wisdom. That's how you connect shamatha and vipassana. We have explained the according to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, when you practice vipassana, you get 5 aspects of wisdom. You get Ren, you are able to accept unpleasant sensation and so on. You are able to have Le, to have Sukha, which means you are perfectly comfortable with what you're doing. You have Hui, that means you can distinguish the object of your attention clearly so that the mind is stabilized on it. It is in samadhi, it is in balance. Then you have Tien, you have the immediate vision of the object. And you have Quan, that means Quan Cha, you can contemplate the object without any obstacles caused by thinking or excitement of the mind. So the same factors of wisdom appear in shamatha and also in vipassana. But first we have them in the vipassana because we have talked about the how to be good in vipassana, how to be good in wisdom. But when your mind is appeased, then you can connect shamatha and vipassana. This is the approach of Yogacara. You have to appease your mind. That means come to the 6th stage of stopping the mind. When you are completely comfortable with your mind, you can accept. This is called the state of prasrabdhi, chin-an. Only in state of chin-an you can connect the shamatha and vipassana, the investigation of the non-differentiated image with the investigation of the differentiated image. When your mind is thinking, has tendency to think, you need to differentiate your image. When the mind is excited, you need to stop the mind, to appease the mind, and so you can balance. This balancing is putting shamatha and vipassana into harmony. we will see it in the next part of it. Comes actually in the next question, the fourth question. Unless you have, the fourth question says, unless you have this prashrabdhi chin an, which we have translated as clarity and relaxation, you cannot practice real shamatha. You can only adopt to shamatha. So the previous the 5 stages, they are, so to say, adoption to shamatha, because the King An is not perfect. Still, there are some obvious tendency to thinking or to excitement. In this case, more to thinking, because in a state of perfect mindfulness, you already have good concentration. But remember, we are talking of shamatha. It means mindfulness of the same object, of the non-differentiated object. This is different from the mindfulness of the vipassana. But you need the mindfulness of shamatha to bring the vipassana in. Otherwise, you are, so to say, only adopting to vipassana. You are not really practicing vipassana unless you have a state of appeasement, the state of clarity and relaxation, which is accompanied, as we have explained, by acceptance, by happy state, by clear differentiation of the object, by the clear seeing of the object, and by clear investigation of the object, if you're practicing the vipassana, that is differentiating the image. That means, as we have explained, investigating it, resolution about it, and letting it go to pay attention to another image. That is vipassana. You investigate the image. It's all coming from the mind, from the karmic mind, which causes the delusion of the real subject and the real object. When you have seen it very clearly, you can let it go and turn to another image. All are just images. And you don't want to hold to the images, so you change the images. You let them come and go without forcing anything, in the perfect state of relaxation. You don't want to control them. These images are not you. You are not these images. They come and go. And you hold to them because of your previous habit of grasping for the objects. Grasping for the objects is grasping for the images. That is yogacara. These images, the translator of Cheng Wei Shalun, the Wei Tat in Hong Kong, that is the Cantonese. I don't remember Mandarin pronunciation. Anyway, he translated Cheng Wei Shalun, excellent translation, and he translate these images, he uses the Jung archetypes. It's very interesting. That is a Jungian psychology. These archetypes, they come actually from our subconsciousness. But in this understanding, our subconsciousness and our consciousness, they cannot be really divided. They are one mind. Finally, all these 8 consciousnesses, Yogacara Bhumi Shastra also says they are just one mind. We divide in order to understand. This is a Buddhist method. We divide the training in morality, in concentration, in wisdom, to understand them as being one. Then you are enlightened. Similarly, we divide these different aspects of the mind to understand them as being just one mind. And we do not cling to this mind, one mind, which is responsible for our reality. So we have come unwillingly to the 4th question. Unless we have the state, 6th state of shamatha, the appeasement teaching, we cannot, so to strictly speaking, place shamatha and vipassana on the together and use them according to our wish. When the mind has a tendency to thinking, we need to lift it up. We will see later. When the mind has a tendency to excitement, we need to stop it. And so we can balance, but we can only balance in the state of clarity and relaxation, in the state of Jing-an, lightness and peace. Then the next stage will be, now your mind is very sensitive because it is appeased. It's called Vyupashamayati. Chi, extremely appeased. How your mind becomes extremely appeased? Because in order to get rid of excitement, you don't need to use any special effort. In order to get rid of clinging, to get rid of thinking, you also don't need any special effort. So your mind is without going up and down. It goes perfectly smooth. The simile given here is like the Afghan horse. The Chinese and the Indian emperors, they used to have it was a 7 signs of the universal monarch to have this special horse. You don't need to pull the rope. You don't need to let go the rope. You just touch the rope and the horse is so sensitive that it runs by himself. Similarly, the mind, when it gets this kind of appeasement, it does not need any effort. Eventually, when it becomes very deep, it just runs with equal effort. No ups and downs. When no more ups and downs, then you will get the one-pointedness of the mind. And when you get the one-pointedness of the mind, if you get the habit of one-pointedness of the mind, if you can keep it without using force, then you are in samadhi. That is a 9th stage. So we have covered this these 9 stages. We have covered the 4th question, which is, as long as you don't have the 6th stage, you don't have the clarity and relaxation. You cannot combine the shamatha and vipassana aspect, and you use shamatha and vipassana aspect to make the mind perfect without excitement, without thinking, so that it only eventually, when you are enlightened, it just effortless attention. Effortless attention is no attention. Just like the sensation which you don't cling to is no sensation. This is a mystery of Buddhism. No clinging to perception is no perception. But the perception is there, but it does not belong to anyone. The sensation is there, but it doesn't belong to anyone. So we have understood something of the Buddhist meditation, and we will continue. I will send you the link to the lectures I will have in India. And when I am free, when I am after the course I have in Mumbai and Pune, then we can discuss like good old friends again, and I will send you, we can telephone by WhatsApp, and when I have free time, so we can again meet together on the Zoom and discuss and get together. So today we have talked 1 hour and 40 minutes. I hope it is useful to some extent, and that it will encourage us to practice with more mindfulness, more awareness in the stage of appeasement. The awareness comes to fruition, and the awareness is a wonder. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, according to Samdhinirmocana Sutra also, when the awareness has fully ripened, that is enlightenment. The awareness itself is a suchness. That is a deep teaching of Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, of the Maitreya tradition. So, any questions, or shall we leave it for next time? Are there any questions?
Yeah, Bhante, while others will think about question.
Let me put on the microphone. I cannot hear you well. Have you heard clearly my explanation? Was it good?
Yes, very good, Bhante.
Now, without the microphone, I cannot. You can hear me well without microphone, but I can't hear you without microphone.
Okay, Bhante.
Microphone is on. I can hear you well. Yes.
Now, can you hear me, Bhante?
Yes, I can. Now it's clear.
Okay. Bhante, I would like to know. I remember your story when you started your practice in Japan in Zen Soto school.
Yes.
And you told us a story about how you practice mostly in daily course, web planting.
Actually, I was very unhappy there in some way because I always thought I want into nirvana, and
So I was very confused and always working, and the teacher trying hard to explain that the working is Zen. I just did not believe it. So I was not happy and decided to become a forest monk, no? Because I always thinking, oh, nirvana, nirvana. I want to be a Buddha. And of course, our mind produces a lot of delusions. And so, but we don't see it in the beginning. It's very difficult to see.
Yeah, that's my question, Bhante. So how we relate that kind of approach with these 9 stages of samatha, Bhante? So their emphasis is in daily activity and daily course. So how we relate this daily activities practice with this 9 stages of samatha, which I presume as give emphasis more in formal practice. That's my question, Bhante. Thank you.
Yes, it is true. It is true. But Zen also is connected with formal practice. But we are in Zen, so to say, always taught not to differentiate between the formal practice and the daily life. That is Zen. So the samadhi is not only in sitting. You remember the famous story of Madhu? He was always sitting, not like us. He was sitting whole days and nights. And his teacher came with a mirror, trying to polish it with a stone. And this is famous Zen story. So actually, we cannot get enlightenment by an effort. That is same idea comes in Yogacara. We can only get realization through effortless attention. Effortless attention, that is a paradox, also need effort. But effort without the self. It is a paradox, just like the sensation without the self is no sensation, perception without the self is no perception. So the Zen is the tradition which always works, at least the living Chinese tradition, sometimes it changes, but it always works with the paradox. Our life is a paradox. And we live always in the mind rich by its own substance, is enlightenment, is emptiness. But we always want something else than what we have. That is also a paradox. That is Zen. We have the mind, but we cannot find it. We have the sensation, but we can find it because the sensation we have is the sensation which we fix. We have perception, but we cannot find it because the perception we have is a perception we fix. And in reality, you cannot fix anything. That is called wisdom samadhi. So the Pragya Paramita Sutra, which is the base for Zen practice, they say that the world is like the mist. From afar, it looks very real, but when you get inside of it, you can. There is nothing to grasp in the mist. But from the far away observer who watches, the observer which the observer which watches the mist from afar, he has the impression that there, somewhere in the valley, is something very solid. But when he gets into the valley, there is nothing to grasp. So this is a parallel of the world. When we watch it from afar, that means from the mind which believes in the duality, in the real subject and the real object, then we think that there is something very solid. But when we are inside the mind and investigate, and Yogacara is the teaching of the mere consciousness, mere mind, then you, however you investigate, this is Zen, you will not find anything you can grasp. And this is how Zen was, so to say, according to the religion, how it was, so to say, transported from India through Bodhidharma to China by this ungraspable, unthinkable, unspeakable mind. And that is the emphasis shifted from the step-by-step realization to the immediate realization. But immediate realization and step-by-step realization, they are compatible. We need long training to be able to realize that all we search for is already there. And so that is why Zen tradition, same like the tantric tradition, to get realized, you need a teacher who will, so to say, point out to you, not by words, but by direct perception, that is Zen, the ungraspable nature of your mind. That is a Chinese tradition. And that's why in the early days was taught by kicking, by shouting, by doing all kinds of incredible things to realize the incredible. But the incredible is right in front of you. It is the oak tree in the garden. But, so in Zen you have the three stages. First, the mountains are the mountains, then there are no mountains, and then they are again the mountains, but they are not the same. But how to explain? Nobody can explain. But in order to realize that the mountains are mountains, that the mist is mist, but nothing else, you have to go through the state of Yogacara. Nothing is there except the mind. Everything appears in the mind. The mind is that which binds us to our old habits of clinging, and the mind which liberates us. And liberation is just, as far as Yogacara is concerned, to understand the real nature of the mind. Because the mind is the only base for our experience that there is. There is no other base. And that is Yogacara. The outer base is different from each and every kind of being, but the mind base, its substance is same for all creatures, and that substance must be like space, like mirror, as we will see. It is substance, no substance, just like mind, no mind, perception, no perception, sensation, no sensation, unspeakable, ungraspable. But nobody can explain. Nobody can explain. We have to use some skillful means, and that is Mahayana. That is the transcendental wisdom. And the skillful means of the Mahayana is contemplate the ungraspable nature of the reality, which you don't have in the what is we can call the original teachings of the Buddha. But it is implied, for sure, it is there, but it is not emphasized. Why? Because like me, we want desperately to get something which is beyond us. But in Buddhism, when we understand more Buddhism, there is nothing beyond us. We have to understand ourselves. And understand ourselves is not to see any self. And not to see any self, we have to understand the nature of the mind. That is Yogacara. So we learn, and the more we get understanding, the life will be more fulfilled. No? But it's also a process of suffering, as Agus has pointed out. That's why the first truth is not as in Hinduism, the bliss, but the first truth is the truth of suffering. So we have to learn through suffering, and learning through suffering is learning through the causes of suffering, which is appropriating that which does not belong to us. It's very simple, but we always do it. What to do? So we suffer. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. Kawan lain mungkin ada yang mau tanya, silahkan. Monggo, Ko Hakim.
Terima kasih, Ko Agus. Amitabha, Sifu. As Sifu mentioned, there are samatha, samadhi, and vipassana samadhi. And then Sifu explains there are 9 stages of samatha samadhi. But I did not hear about the vipassana samadhi.
The vipassana samadhi means we have explained. These are the 4 stages to understand that all you can grasp are these images, and these images are we differentiate them. We differentiate them because we investigate them. When we have investigated them, we resolute about them. And when we resolute about them, we abandon them because we know that you cannot grasp them. They are mere images and produced by the mind, which itself cannot be grasped.
So vipassana samadhi, could it be like when we investigate the object at the same time we balancing the mind, not sinking or not too excited?
No. If you don't want to think, you will always get into trouble. Thinking is not trouble. Just like hearing is not trouble, seeing is not trouble. The attachment to thinking is a trouble. And we attach to thinking because we attach to eyes, we attach to ears, we attach to nose, we attach to tongue, and we attach to the body. That's why we attach to thinking. But it is just another organ, not more than that. So our world is mental world because without mind we cannot see anything. Without mind we cannot hear anything. We cannot smell anything. We cannot touch anything. So the mind is the base for all these senses. And the understanding the mind is understanding the emptiness. We can understanding the mind is to understand the no-mind, just like understanding the sensation is understanding the non-sensation. But understanding the non-mind does not mean that the mind does not exist, but it is not as we think it is. Just like zero is there, but
Yeah.
but you cannot grasp it. That's why it is called zero. But yet it is very important for all the advanced mathematical calculations are based on the zero. But you want to grasp the zero, you will be frustrated. Similarly, all our thinking is based on mind, but when you want to grasp it, you will be frustrated also. Just like when you want to grasp the eye, you will be frustrated. But the eye can see because of darkness. The mind can see also because of the contrary. Right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Sifu. By the way, another question is, so in Vipassana Samadhi, there is no stages. Samatha Samadhi, there are 9 stages. So how about?
We have explained. You must have been thinking about something else. These 4 stages we have explained, and it comes later in the text. Also, you can connect it with 3 stages. You can connect it with 8 stages. These are only differentiations to help us to see better. So first stage, you understand the specific characteristic, common characteristics, then you work on them with wisdom. First with the rough differentiation, then very subtle differentiation. And in this tradition, this differentiation is differentiation of images. Unless somebody tells you about aggregates, you don't know aggregates. Somebody tells you about 5 aggregates, you will not know about 5 aggregates. Why not 6 or 7 or 8? You have decided like that. Why not the aggregate of memory? You have to investigate. Why not some other aggregates where you may find some? But the 5 aggregates is most convenient. So Buddha has taught in the most convenient way. But it is only skillful means. And skillful means is, does not correspond to any reality which stands. The reality of skillful means is the reality which is on the move. It is only to bring us to the true reality. And the true reality, no matter whether Tantra or classical Hinayana or classical Mahayana, is always the selfless reality. Whatever, without however, paradox, without the self, you will never know the 5 aggregates, and without the 5 aggregates, you will never know the self. So we are always, in samsara, we are always in paradox. Understanding this paradox and seeing through, that is Zen, the wisdom samadhi, in which shamatha and vipassana come together. The Zen is based on Yogacara. In Hui Neng, you can see is a flag moving or is a wind moving. Your mind is moving, says Hui Neng. Now, we always want to argue about the flag moving and the wind moving, but it is the mind moving. And mind is moving because we have not realized the nature of the mind. This is our paradigm. So we always want to grasp something standing in our feeling, in our sensations, in our perception, in our will, but we will not find such a thing. And who is the one who will not find? It is the awareness. So according to Yogacara, the suchness is awareness. This is the wonderful emphasis of the Yogacara. Awareness is suchness, suchness is awareness. And you come to this awareness through understanding the image. We apply a name to the image, and then on the base of that name, of that concept, we apply some self-existent nature. When you are aware of this, you come to such. But we are not aware of this. We still hold into it like a monkey holds to banana. But it is our habit. Okay, let us transfer merit for the benefit of all things and beings.
Yes, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Sifu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhante.
愿以此功德不计一切，我等一众生皆空成佛道。May the merit of this practice spread to all beings, so that we attain the state of Buddhahood. Oktober. So we keep in touch, and I will send you the link to the Indian lecture. And I will choose this very same 6th chapter. First, I will explain a little bit about the Samdhinirmocana Sutra and so on. And then we will go to the 6th chapter, and maybe when we have clarity, please try to read also. There is a translation from Tibetan, I forgot who, and there is translation from Chinese by Thomas Clary. A very good translation, but he does not explain it, no commentary. I have translated into Czech and written some notes, but it needs a very extensive commentary. And in a way, the most extensive commentary is the Yogacara Bhumishastra, the most important treatise on meditation in the Bodhisattva tradition. But the Bodhisattva tradition, in this tradition, is based on understanding the original Shravaka tradition. Asanga, Wujo, Bosa, Nagarjuna, Lunshu Bosa, they were all very well versed in the Shravaka tradition, in the Four Noble Truths, in the analysis of the mind, and they use it to apply it to understanding of the logic of realization. That is Mahayana. Okay, so talk to you sometimes later. All the best, and long life, wonderful Indonesia. We are in troubled world. Indonesia seems to be one of the less troubled places in this world. At least I think so. But our mind creates lots of illusions. Okay, so talk to you later.